Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I'm here with comedian Ron Placone. There he is right there. Hey,
Howdy.
Ron. How are you? So you saw, everybody knows what's happening with Mike Flynn. The Wall Street Journal reports Donald Trump's national security advisor, Mike Flynn, resigns over Russia contacts. So real quick, what happened was Mike Flynn was in contact with a Russian ambassador, and he told him, don't worry about the sanctions Obama's putting on Russia. When we get in office, we'll work it all out. Don't worry about it. So that's against the law. You're not allowed to commit. That's called conducting foreign policy, and only the president of the State Department's allowed to do that. So that was a big deal. Then he lied. Mike Flynn lied to Vice President Pence and said he didn't talk about it. So turns out this is a scandal. I don't know. I don't get how it's that big of a scandal. Well, here's what Christopher Hayes tweeted out. He said, by the way, this is probably a minority view, but if Flynn had a phone call with Russia ambassador urging him not to overreact to sanctions, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. But why all the subterfuge and dissembling? Why'd everyone act like there's something to cover up? And Michael Tracy says, because the Democrats stoked flaming Russia hysteria for months and would latch on to any evidence that purported to show Trump as being compromised. So
there's no evidence of that.
So this whole thing. So Chris Hayes is saying, what's the big deal? And Michael Tracy is saying it's because the goddamn Democrats have been pushing this fucking Russia thing to cover up for their failures. So as long as we keep talking about Russia, we're not talking about what's wrong with the Democratic Party or our country. And so there's no worry of progressives taking over one of the political parties and moving this country back into the hands of workers or regular people. So, well, here's Dennis Kucinich, who was on Fox. And so I said that the Democrats were trying to get from Election Day to Inauguration Day without talking about where they went wrong. Because if they did, a lot of people would have to lose their jobs, and the way of doing business inside the Democratic Party would have to change, meaning they'd have to get out of bed with their big money donors on Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, fossil fuels, the whole deal. They're supposed to go back to, trying to fight against the exploitative practices of those industries. So here is Dennis Kucinich, and he's going to lay it down for us. Why this is dangerous, what the Democrats... So the Democrats turned into red baiters, which is the Republicans, the right-wingers used to do. So if you're in a union, you're a communist, and that's how they hollowed out unions, and that's why the unions are weak today. They did all that shit, and they did it to teachers, could accuse them of being reds. So now the Democrats started doing that because they saw it as an effective political ploy. That's what... So when the Democratic Party got taken over by the Clintons, you see how Republican the Democratic Party became. They now gaslight, they dismiss progressives and workers, and they go after white-collar people. So you see what happened when they're not Democrats anymore. They do things like Republicans, including red baiting. So now here, listen to what he said about all this Russia hysteria. This is great. Dennis Kucinich.
General Flynn has admitted misleading the vice president. But I think we have to look at this a little bit deeper. A phone call from the incoming director of national security was intercepted, and the contents given to the media.
So he's saying it was intercepted. So the incoming national security advisor's phone call was intercepted. By who? Our intelligence agencies. By the CIA. And leaked to the media. Sounds like government working against government, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have to, and so obviously shared by intelligence officials. Now, what's at the core of this is an effort by some in the intelligence community to upend any positive relationship between the U.S. and Russia. And I tell you, there's a marching band and chowder society out there. There's gold in them there hills. There are people trying to separate the U.S. and Russia so that this military-industrial intel axis can cash in.
So is the bigger...
So he's saying, look, these these guys in the intelligence communities are orchestrating their own things for their own reasons. That's what he's saying.
You hear, in your view, the fact that this was leaked and somebody inside the White House got this news out to the press? What are you saying?
Well, look, it's an issue, and the general has admitted in his resignation letter that he misled the vice president. That's a bad thing. But the American people have to know that there's a game going on inside the intelligence community where there are those who want to separate the U.S. from Russia in a way that would reignite the Cold War. That's what's at the bottom of all this. It's like, it's early in the morning, it's Valentine's Day, but wake up, America.
Wow.
Congressman, do you think that this fundamentally changes the prospect of a stronger relationship with Russia, or do you think that things can proceed as they have been proceeding, as the president has said he'd like to proceed?
Hey, look, what's going on in the intelligence community with this new president is unprecedented. They're making every effort to upend him. Who knows what the truth is anymore? This is like the electronic version of Mad Magazine, spy versus spy. And so the bottom line is we should not start a Cold War again with Russia. The American people forked over billions of dollars for the last one and changed the quality of life in this country. There's something wrong going on here in the intelligence community.
So Dennis Kucinich is saying the intelligence community is kind of running their own foreign policy where they want to ramp up another Cold War with Russia. And he's saying that costs American people billions, if not trillions of dollars to do that. And he's saying there's something wrong here. This shouldn't be happening. Hey, if you disagree with Trump, that's one thing. It's another thing for our internal intelligence communities to turn on the executive branch, another part of the government. That's what and starting to try to influence their own foreign. But that's what he says is happening. Mm-hmm. So here's a little bit more.
What should Donald Trump do?
What should Donald Trump do?
What should Donald Trump do then?
Well, look, first of all, he has to get a hold of his own intelligence apparatus. You know, this isn't a joke. This is a serious matter. If he doesn't get control of where the information's coming from, he'll never know the truth. The American people won't know the truth. And we could be set at war with almost any country. Be very careful is my warning this morning. It's not just this administration. I want to remind the viewers and all those who are on the panel that in the closing months of the Obama administration, they put together a deal with Russia to create peace in Syria. A few days later, a military strike in Syria killed 100 Syrian soldiers, and that ended the agreement. What happened is, inside the intelligence and the Pentagon, there was a deliberate effort to sabotage an agreement the White House made. This is like deep state. This is like some kind of a spy novel. But it's real, and the American people have to understand a game is being played with the security of our country.
So what he's saying is that this isn't only Trump. They did this to Barack Obama at the end of the Barack Obama administration. They had worked out a deal with Russia and Syria. They were working together. We reported it on the show, how they were communicating in real time to make sure that the United States didn't end up bombing any of the Russian soldiers or Syrian soldiers. That the United States had seemingly stopped funding and arming ISIS in Syria, decided to team up with Russia and Syria and fight them. Finally, it seemed like. And he's saying that the intelligence community in the Pentagon works to undermine Barack Obama's deal with Russia. That's what he's saying right there. That inside the intelligence community in the Pentagon, they didn't only just work to screw up Trump, they tried to screw up Obama when he tried to get peace with Russia. They screwed him over too. That's what he's saying. Former Congressman, truth teller, Dennis Kucinich.
Big time. Yeah, and I mean, I like the way you laid it out, because, I mean, we've made this analogy on this show. Like I've said it before, it's like our country is becoming a James Bond movie.
Yes.
And like a James Bond movie, there aren't many good guys. It's more of a web of bad guys. Yeah, Flynn's still a bad guy. But, you know, all this other stuff is corrupt too.
He's got a little bit more to say.
going on. But the question is the president getting the right information? And are there games being played inside the intelligence community to force American policy in a direction that's different than what the White House wants? We need to have closer ties with Russia. We can't be suckers in this, but we cannot also have certain people playing an agenda that separates us from our aspirations for peace between the two major powers in the world.
So, but inside our intelligence community.
There's definitely something going on inside the intelligence community to try to undermine this administration. And we better, this isn't about whether you're for or against Donald Trump.
Right.
Hello? Mm-hmm. This is about whether or not the American people are bystanders in a power play inside the intelligence community, the outcome of which could determine our relationships with Russia and whether or not billions of dollars are going to be spent in a new Cold War.
That's pretty heavy duty. Now, you're not going to hear it. I haven't heard anybody talk about this anywhere else besides this show. Where else have you heard people say stuff like that? I mean, that's amazing that he's saying it. It's got to go to Fox.
Yeah, well, he's taking something that's very black, that's very gray when people just want black and white content. It's like, well, you're for this or you're against this or you're on this side or you're on this side. And it's like, well, no, it's more complicated than that because it's becoming a spy novel, like the analogy he made. And I really think, as a side note, this clip could kind of just be a piece on everything that's wrong with this country. You have a grossly intelligent man, Dennis Kucinich, explaining a complex issue where the host, I'm pretty certain, is having trouble understanding exactly what he's saying and needs clarification at every angle. And then you have footage of the actual leader, the president, who looks like a complete dope at every angle when they're trying to make him look remotely presidential. And Dennis Kucinich is pretty much yelling down a hole in many ways. Because it's probably just a bunch of 72-year-old angry white men watching him say this stuff.
Yes. We know that's who watches Fox News. They're 70. I think their average age of viewer is 71.
Yeah, something like that.
So, yeah, that's who's watching. And, you would think all the people in the lefty press would be running with this story. Hey, we got one of the leading lefties, Dennis Kucinich. He's saying that there's a problem with the intelligence community. Not only do they undermine Donald Trump, but they undermine President Obama, who we like. You think they would want to report that story, but that story would undermine their Russia. Keep talking about Russia, when it's really our own intelligence community trying to ramp up a Cold War.
Yeah. Well, I think Dennis in general, for some reason, doesn't get a lot of the credit he's due.
Oh, of course not.
I really feel even when people give, and I love Bernie Sanders, obviously, but a lot of the credit he's given, I'm like, wait a second, were you guys not behind Kucinich in the 2008 primary? He's been, he kind of was doing this for a while now. Bernie just put gasoline on the fire, but the fire was there.
Yeah, the thing about Dennis Kucinich was he wasn't getting 50 and 60,000 people to come hear him talk.
So
that's why.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So
that's
he had
why.
a lot of people had those Bernie Sanders ideas for whatever reason. This last election cycle, Bernie Sanders everybody wanted to hear him say it, right? Maybe because we thought Barack Obama had been saying it, and then we realized he really wasn't doing it. He was saying it, he wasn't doing it. So here we go. Dennis Kucinich laying it down. The bigger story is being missed. The bigger story is that we have an inner struggle inside of our government, our intelligence community, trying to conduct its own foreign policy and trying to ramp up a Cold War with Russia. And not only did they do it to Donna Tanahans, but they did it to Barack Obama.
Yeah, the government's not a reality TV show, guys.
Yeah.
This could be a war. That's not okay.
Yeah, and that's what he's saying. And guess what a Cold War does? It robs poor kids of medicine, and it robs everybody of health care. It robs everybody of education, roads, bridges, anything else we need. That's what a Cold War does. And that's what's happening right now. And it seems like the lefty media is going along with it. And they're missing the bigger part of the story. That's why, that's why Dennis Kucinich is saying that to someone who doesn't even understand what he's saying. But we'll say it also. That's why we're here.
And I'm allowed to say this, right, Dennis? You're welcome on this show anytime.
Oh, we
right?
should reach out to Dennis. We'll reach out to Dennis. He'd be a great get. He goes on Fox. Maybe he'll come on I'm sure he'd come on our show. When I say sure,